starting. Hello, good afternoon to each and everyone. I hope everyone is having a good afternoon. So welcome everybody, welcome to the first episode of Healthy in 30. I'm your host, Miss Cadeja Wright, and we'll be starting the program right now. It's such a pleasure being online, and I'm gonna be able to share what I know, all my knowledge, with each and everyone who tunes in. So right away, I just wanna take the opportunity to say hashtag Mckoy News. That's the website that you can go and you can join this program if you want to listen, if you want to share it with your family and friends. You just need to go to mckoynews.com and you'll be able to watch it and enjoy it. Alrighty, so for those who missed it, today is the launch of Healthy in 30. It's a health/medical program where university students and other medical personnel will be sharing and talking about common diseases that affect us as human beings from all over the world. We'll be sharing diseases and talking about it, finding out what it is, finding out how we can prevent it, finding out anything about it that strikes us about a disease, because I always say our health is our responsibility, and as such, do we not want to live a long and healthy life? I know that I want to do that. So we're encouraging each and everyone to tune into the program. Don't be afraid to tune into the program. If you're not going to be able to catch today's episode, then you can go on Mckoy's News YouTube channel and you might be able to rewatch this episode. So hashtag Mckoy News, come online and let us start and learn about today's discussion. So if you have read the caption, today we'll be talking about diabetes mellitus. Yes, we'll be talking about diabetes. And I know many people, they're quite familiar with it. And for some people, they're familiar with it because they have it. Some people are familiar with it because they probably heard some persons talk about it. But for some people, they're familiar because they have it. So today, we want to focus on diabetes and talk about it to see how best we can not be a person who has diabetes. So let's get straight into it. Let me first apologize for the late start due to technical difficulties, but we shall proceed. So let's talk about diabetes. So studies have shown that diabetes is the 7th most common disease affecting persons in the US. So it's in the top 10, which basically means that there is a call for concern about the amount of persons who are suffering from diabetes. So there is cause for concern about it, right? All right, so we already know that the statistics is telling you that many persons across the world are faced with diabetes. So let's find out what it is exactly, right? So diabetes is a chronic disease that is characterized by someone having high sugar in their blood. So their glucose content in their blood is elevated, is unusually high. So that is what diabetes basically is. So persons will say, why is it that this happens? I drink water, why is it that my blood sugar is always high? So let's talk about why is it that diabetes occurs. So let's talk about what happens normally. Normally in the body, 1 minute. Right. So let's talk about what happens normally. Normally in the body, your liver cells, the beta cells of your liver will secrete insulin to get your blood sugar level down. For example, if you've had a high carbohydrate meal or a high lipid meal, right after you've eaten a meal, your blood sugar level usually spikes right up. Right, so insulin is secreted from the beta cells of the pancreas in order to lower your blood sugar level or bring it to a norm. After that, that will trigger your liver to secrete glycagon, and that now is another hormone. So that hormone will then convert glycogen to glucose, and this glucose will be able to go into your different tissues, go into your muscle cells, go into your liver tissues, and this is what enables your body to have energy to move from place to place. So you need insulin first of all to be activated, and then after that you need glycagon to be activated, and that is how you have glucose in your body to do all your daily activities. So that is what normally happens. So what is the question is, what is the abnormal thing that happens during diabetes? What happens, first of all, let me just say that there are two main types of diabetes. One is called type 1 diabetes, or also called insulin dependent diabetes, and then you have type 2 diabetes, which is called insulin independent diabetes. So let's focus first of all on what happens why diabetes is of concern. All right, what happens in type 1 diabetes? Type 1 diabetes affects 10% of the population, so it is not very common, but some persons do have that classification, and some persons they're diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes occurs when your cells, they're secreting no insulin. That means that your pancreas, its normal job, it's an exocrine gland, its normal job is to secrete insulin. But when your pancreas decides not to secrete insulin due to destruction of the beta cells, that is what cause type 1 diabetes to occur. And as we further establish, or we previously established, in order for after insulin is secreted, then glycogen comes and does its work. So if you have no insulin, what does that mean? That means that no glycogen can come. And if there's no glycogen, what does that mean? That means that no glucose will be able to go to your body cells. So that is why when a person is suffering from type 1 diabetes, they usually see a lot of muscle wasting. Their muscles are losing its tone because no energy is being generated in their muscles so that they can do things. So they usually look, they kind of look very slim, their muscles are wasted, and that's how they look. They have a lethargic look to them, right? And that is what happens in type 1 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes, the persons, they will have to take insulin shots right throughout the rest of their life because their body cells are not producing insulin. So in order for them to continue to live a vibrant lifestyle, they will have to take insulin shots. Maybe you've seen some persons self-injecting themselves with their insulin shots, because that is the way that they're able to carry out their lifestyle, by being able to get insulin into their body, right, or to get man-made insulin into their body, and then from there, their pancreas can continue to do its work. So we just spoke about type 1 diabetes. So now let's talk about type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is very, very common. Type 2 diabetes affects around 90% of the entire world's population. Around 8.3 million people in the US are suffering from type 2 diabetes. So it's very, very common. And as I said earlier, the aim of this health program is for prevention. It's not really about treatment and how we can cure. No. First of all, our aim is to prevent these diseases. So let's continue to talk about type 2 diabetes. So type 2 diabetes now is caused. All right, let's talk about what causes it, what triggers it basically. It can be triggered by a genetic descent. Like if you have a family history of persons who have had diabetes, then there is need for concern, because there's a trait that can be passed on from maybe your grandfather, your mother, persons in your direct bloodline, your father. So you can inherit a trait for diabetes, right? Also, another factor that contributes to you having type 2 diabetes is definitely, everybody knows this, this is not anything new, your lifestyle, the amount of exercise you do. If you live a sedentary lifestyle, if you're just from work to car to home, you do no amount of physical exercise, but yet you're eating high energy meals, then this is contributing to you getting obesity. And obesity is a factor that affects somebody or contributes to somebody being at a high risk for having diabetes, especially type 2 diabetes. So what happens in type 2 diabetes? In type 2 diabetes, your cells, or I should say your pancreas, is secreting normal insulin. Insulin is very important, a very important hormone. So your pancreas is secreting the insulin that is needed and that is necessary. But when it secretes that insulin, your muscle cells, your liver cells, all the cells in your body, they become insulin resistant, which means that even though from the pancreas it is secreted so it can do its job, the cells around your body, they are not able to utilize it, right? The cells around your body, they are not able to utilize that insulin, so they become insulin resistant. And if you're following what we said earlier, if no insulin is able to be passed to the cells, that means that no glycogen can be converted to glucose, which will mean that your body, which means that in your bloodstream, what is going to happen, that glucose is going to be building up. That sugar, because glucose is a sugar, that sugar is going to be building up in your blood vessels. Because what should happen is that the sugar should travel to your cells so that you can do work, right? So you can lift a box, for example. But if the glucose is not going to be activated, because in type 2 diabetes, in order for glucose to be activated, insulin is required. So if the cells are not going to be adaptable to the insulin, that means that there's not going to be any glucose to be secreted to your cells. So in type 2 diabetes, your cells become insulin resistant, leading to an accumulation of sugar in your blood vessels, and that is called a hyperglycemia. So there's a accumulation of glucose in your blood vessels, because they cannot move out to the cells as they ought to. So that is what happens in type 2 diabetes. And another factor that can contribute to you having type 2 diabetes is hypertension. And another time we'll talk about hypertension, but that is another important thing. So all in all, type 2 diabetes, we want to narrow it down to say that your cells become insulin resistant, and as such you have to find a way how you can limit yourself from getting type 2 diabetes. And the most important factor we spoke about is exercise. I cannot stress how important exercise is, and eating a healthy diet. It is very, very important, because they stop you from getting hypertension, they stop you from getting obese. So if you don't do what you have to do, then your body cannot carry out its function as it normally should. And we know for diabetes, when people always say, oh, my sugar level is high, and I don't even eat sugar, but let me tell you, many of these foods that we're eating, they contain processed sugar. So you might take up the package and you might see 13 grams of sugar, such and such, but you don't understand how much sugar they're actually putting in these foods. So another thing I'm gonna encourage people to do is, if you can buy foods that you know that they don't have too much additives in them, they're natural, eating your fruits, your vegetables, then that is the way to go, because we are unaware of the amount of sugar that is in the food that we buy at the shop. We are so much unaware of it, and that is something that is affecting this entire world. So let's now talk about the signs and symptoms of diabetes. Signs and symptoms of diabetes would include a person who is excessively thirsty or hungry. And why does that happen? Because they become dehydrated. The sugar needs to move out into their cells, but because it's unable to do that, they start to suffer from dehydration. So they're excessively thirsty, and sometimes some persons have they're excessively hungry. Even after they've eaten a meal, they can't be satisfied, they just want to eat some more. So you have to check your family members. If they're excessively hungry, excessively thirsty, then you want to check them to see if they are at risk for pre-diabetes. And we'll talk about pre-diabetes in a few moments. All right. Other signs and symptoms of diabetes include unexplained weight loss, right? And that is due to their cells becoming insulin resistant. So we already spoke about their muscles. Their muscles become wasted, and they're just losing weight. And sometimes when persons go to the doctor and say, "Doc, I'm losing weight and I've been eating normally," that is something like that triggers you to think that, okay, why is it that I'm losing weight yet I'm eating normally? You could be at risk for diabetes. Another symptom of diabetes is increased urine output. And we talk about increased urine output, we're talking about frequent trips to the bathroom, having to drink like, even if you haven't drank something heavy or drank a large amount of fluids, you're going to the bathroom quite frequently, so you're having frequent urination. That could be a sign of diabetes. And another sign of diabetes is slow healing wounds. Some persons, they will say, "Oh, it's just my family trait. I have slow healing wounds," but it always causes for concern. Like, and if a person is quite susceptible to infections, you have an immune system in your body. Like when you get a cold, your immune system is fighting against that cold. Your immune system is destroying the pathogen that causes that cold. So if you have an infection, for example, nothing is wrong if you have an infection, but you have to check how long does that infection go away. How long does it take for that infection to go away? Because persons who are susceptible to infections, which means that their immune system has been downgraded. So all of these signs and symptoms, the excessive thirst, the frequent urine output, the unexplained weight loss, the slow healing wounds, if you are susceptible to infections that last for a very long time, like 2-3 months, you probably have a skin infection, and you can't even find the reason behind why is it that your skin is looking this way. You want to check to ensure that you are not at risk for diabetes. So let's talk about the complications of diabetes, right? So diabetes, we spoke about what it is, we spoke about the signs and the symptoms. Now we want to talk about if it gets complicated, then what can happen. And a point to note is that there are many people who are living with diabetes and they don't know. Many people are living with diabetes and yet they don't know. And the reason they don't know is because, when I will talk about it later, when you do the diagnostic test for diabetes, when you do the diagnostic test, it doesn't show that their blood glucose is increased, and as such they feel like, oh, okay, I'm fine. But that is not the case, because with diabetes, it is something that it takes its time. It's like a little creeper. It takes its time before it becomes pronounced. So how you can help yourself is by frequent exercise, eating healthy, eating a balanced diet, eating fruits, vegetables, drinking plenty of water, flushing your system. That is how you can help yourself. That is how you can help your body to remain healthy, because diabetes, it is so silent when it's creeping up in your body. It is so silent that not all diagnostic tests will right away show you that you are diabetic. But that is why you have to keep watch over yourself in how you take care of yourself, so that diabetes doesn't affect you. So let's talk about now the complications of diabetes. The first one I want to talk about, many people are aware of this also, is it can cause blindness, and we call that diabetic retinopathy. It can cause blindness, right? Because there are many persons, their vision starts going blurry, because in your bloodstream your glucose level is elevated, and then what happens is that this is gonna affect other parts of your body. So one of the major parts that it affects is your eyes. So many persons, after being diagnosed with diabetes, they start having vision problems and so on and so forth. Another thing that happens as a complication of diabetes is diabetic nephropathy, which means that your kidney can start failing. Basically, your kidney can start failing. And we all know that we don't want our kidney to start failing, because our kidney is such a vital organ. It removes the toxins from your body. and we are surrounded every day by toxins, by viruses, by bacteria. We breathe, we live this bacteria. So if your kidneys are not functioning, then lo and behold, what have you become? So the next complication of diabetes is nerve damage. It can cause nerve damage, and it can also cause chronic heart failure, heart disease, because you have the deposition of fat, especially if you're eating a high fat diet, a high lipid diet. You have the accumulation of fat in your blood vessels, which is known as atherosclerosis. So if you have diabetes and it's not being treated properly, that would mean that you're at risk for blindness, you're at risk for nerve damage, you are at risk for heart failure, you are at risk for kidney failure. So let's talk about diabetes diagnosis now. So say for example, I'm just a regular person. How do I check if I have diabetes, and how do I control it? So we'll talk about that. So first of all, let's talk about how do we diagnose diabetes. So we know the normal pinprick method, which is, it's like you're just testing your blood sugar level, right? It's just a pin, they prick you with the pin, then you would put your hand on a reader and it will read your blood sugar level. So that is normal, that many of us know about. If we've attended any health fair or anything that has to do with being healthy, one of the things that you would have had to check is your sugar level. So you can check your sugar level, and it is quite advisable that if you are able to afford it, you have blood sugar machines, you keep them in your house, because your blood sugar, it can be altered at any time based on what you eat. First of all, it can be altered by what you eat, first of all. So it is advisable that you keep your own blood sugar machine or blood sugar test in your house, so you can check it. If you feel like, oh, I've been eating a lot of sugar, I've not been exercising, you want to have a range of what your blood sugar is like, then you can check it for yourself and see where you are, right? And as we always say, prevention is better than cure. So that is one of the diagnostic tests for diabetes. Another one is called the oral glucose tolerance test, right? So in oral glucose tolerance test, once again, you're checking your blood sugar, and it's a very good diagnostic method, but it is kind of outdated, right? Where you keep checking the person's blood glucose after every 2 hours. You would make them an oral glucose solution. So this method, the oral glucose tolerance test, this method is kind of outdated. Another way you can check if you have diabetes is by just checking your fasting glucose level, right? You can check your fasting glucose level. Now, when I speak about your fasting glucose level, I mean like from your last meal, like 8 hours after your last meal, that is when they would check your blood glucose level. That is called your fasting blood glucose level. And it should be less than 100 milligram per deciliter. That is what your fasting blood glucose level should be. So if it is anywhere over 100, then there is need for concern. Also, you can, as I was saying, if you have your machines at home, you can check after meal. Your blood glucose level should be about 140 milligrams, because after taking that meal, then your glucose will be elevated, your muscles will start working, so you will have an elevation in your blood glucose after you've eaten a meal. But before a meal, your blood glucose level should be around 70 to 120. So there are different parameters in how you can check your blood glucose level, and it's very important that we check it regularly. And when I say regularly, I mean every chance, not every single chance you get, but as much as the opportunity presents itself, you get it tested. Also, diabetes is diagnosed when you have 2 diagnostic tests that are elevated. So as we spoke about earlier, say you have the oral glucose tolerance test, it's elevated, that means there's a need to concern. And say you have your fasting glucose level that is elevated, that means you have 2 diagnostic tests that is elevated, which means that you have to really go and check if, okay, All right, I have diabetes. Do I have diabetes type 1 or do I have diabetes type 2? Because for both of them, the treatment would differ, because in type 1, as we spoke about earlier, type 1 diabetes, your pancreas is not producing any insulin, but in type 2 diabetes, insulin is secreted by your pancreas, but your cells become insulin resistant, right? So different treatment according to what the issue is, right? So we talk about the diagnostic test already. So when you have 2 diagnostic tests that are done on 2 different days that show an elevated blood glucose level or elevated blood sugar level, that means that you are diagnosed with diabetes mellitus. All right, they also have another test which is known as the hemoglobin A1C test. In this test, it is checking your blood glucose in the past 3 months. So as we spoke about diabetes being a silent killer, you can also check your blood glucose level in the past 3 months to see what it is like compared to going forward. So you can have a comparison between your blood glucose level, right? And in the hemoglobin A1C test, the normal value for the last 3 months should be 4 to 5.9%. All right, so we spoke quite a lot about diabetes, right? So let's talk about treatment, prevention. As we said earlier, we're not so much focusing on treatment and management, but we want to focus on prevention, because prevention is definitely better than cure, right? So let's talk about, say for example, I'm a person who has diabetes. We've been saying it already. What's the most important thing you can do? Cut down on how much sugar you intake. That is the best thing you can do for yourself. This would mean that you would plan your meals. You would ensure that the portion of your meals are more leaning towards the protein side, they're more leaning towards the vegetable side, they're more leaning towards the fruit side versus the carb side. And even if you're going to eat a lot of carb, then what you can do for yourself is that you must exercise, you must burn that energy that you're putting into your body, right? So that is the first thing you can do to treat it or manage it. A second thing you can do is that you must take a lot of water. Water is life, we know that. So you have to balance out the amount of sugar that you're intaking into your body. So especially in the summer, it is necessary to walk with your bottle of water wherever you are going. Walk with your bottle of water, because your cells can easily become dehydrated. And when you have an increased amount of sugar in your bloodstream, the cells, that is when they're gonna start shrinking, because they're not gonna be able to absorb water. So they become shrink, and the sugar will start to move into your bloodstream. So instead of your cells having enough water to be able to do their job, what happens is that they start shrinking. That is how your cells become dehydrated. That is how you start feeling dehydrated. So point to note, drinking 8 glasses of water per day is very, very, very important. If you can't manage the 8 glasses, then manage as much as you can manage, right? All right, another thing you can do to help yourself if you have been diagnosed with diabetes is that you share what you know with somebody, because I'm gonna say that education and knowledge is power. And as we spoke about earlier, it is something that you can inherit from a family member. So you want to educate your children about it, you want to educate your friends about it, because 8.7 million people around the world have been diagnosed with this. That is a lot, which means there's a cause for concern about diabetes mellitus. And exercise, which is a very, very, very important factor in how you can prevent yourself from having this, because with exercise you're burning that fat. With exercise you're burning that extra amount of lipid content that is building up in your blood vessels, that is preventing you from having a heart disease. So it's very important. So we're talking about the sedentary lifestyle, where you're moving from when work is finished, you jump in your car, then from work you just go straight home, have your dinner, call it a night, and the next day you repeat the routine, right? I was saying that this is not healthy at all. Try to put in a few minutes a day, if you can't do minutes or hours, just do a little bit of exercise, and that would include not driving but maybe walking. If it's safe, then you are free to walk. Instead of taking that cab or taking a bus, then you're free to walk. And walking has shown to improve blood circulation in your body. It has shown to improve your memory. It has shown to improve your thought process. So walking, just walking just walk from one location to the next, has proved to improve your overall body function. So it's very important that if you get the chance, walk, exercise. It keeps you healthy. Right. And for those who might have type 1 diabetes, it is very important that you don't miss your insulin shots, because you're giving your cells a chance to go back to like destruction. So if you've been keeping up with taking your insulin shots, then that is good. So try to go to your local clinic and make sure that you stock up on your insulin shots. And do not wait until you're feeling dizzy, which are the signs of somebody who's having a diabetic attack, like their blood glucose level is low. Do not wait until you're feeling dizzy. Do not wait until you're feeling confused before you take your insulin shot. Have a specific time of day that you take your medication, because as doctors, we know nobody really likes medication, but at the end of the day, we have to do for you what your cells and your body is not doing for itself. So take your medication on time. Have a specific time of day that you're going to take your medication. And if you do miss your dose, as soon as you remember that, oh my God, I have forgotten to take my insulin shot, then take it. But do not double up on a dose. Just take it as soon as you forget that you have not taken it, right? Right. All right. So let's continue. So let's go now to our Did You Know feature. So here we go. Did you know that there are glucose sensors that are now being implanted under the skin that do frequent sampling of blood glucose level? So yes, it was found out that many scientists, they are now putting like glucose sensors, they're implanting it under the skin of persons so that they can continuously sample their blood glucose level. And then it's like a trial that you're doing to see what activities are persons doing that is causing their blood glucose level to increase. And you know, science is so interesting that it keeps on evolving. So they're doing this to see what activities they can advise us to do and not to do, so as to maintain our blood glucose level at a normal level. All right, so now let's go to, okay, I just want to take the opportunity to tell everybody, start sharing. If you're just joining us, start sharing the live video. Start hashtagging Mckoy's news. This is the one of the most wonderful online news website you'll ever find. Start hashtagging Mckoy's news. Start sharing the video so more persons can get informed about diabetes mellitus, which is what we're talking about today on Healthy in 30. Just want to say again, today is the launch of Healthy in 30 medical and health program. Today is the launch of it. Today is the first episode. Today we're speaking about diabetes mellitus. We're talking about complications. We're talking about diagnostic tests, talking about what it is, what can you do if you have it to maintain your blood glucose, what can you do to prevent it. As we say, prevention is better than cure. So we're doing what we have to do to share to the world about different diseases that is affecting our population. All right, I'm gonna take the time now to go into our 5 minutes of question and answer segment. So I'll go online now and read what some persons are saying. So the live feed is now open. Any questions that you might have about diabetes, if you're not sure about something, if you want some clarity as to something I said, now is the time to go ahead and share what you know, ask your questions, give your feedback as to our talk and diabetes mellitus. So you can go ahead. In the meanwhile, I'll read some things I'm saying. I'm seeing Muriel prayed out Melville. Good afternoon to you. She's saying they're called glucose monitoring, right? So she's talking about the new advancement in medicine where they're putting glucose sensors underneath person's skin, implanting them to monitor them. So that is a breakthrough in medicine, you can say. So she's telling us they're called glucose monitoring. Okay. Let's see what else some persons are saying. Some persons are giving a thumbs up. All right, that's good. Right, as I said about the diagnostic tests, you need 2 diagnostic tests in order to be diagnosed with diabetes mellitus. And those diagnostic tests will include the oral glucose tolerance test, which is a diagnostic test, and another one which is called the hemoglobin A1C test. So you need at least 2 of those tests, right? You need both of them for you to be diagnosed with diabetes, because if your blood sugar is elevated in one and not the other, then you need another test to diagnose you as to having full-blown diabetes mellitus. So you need 2. Let's make that clear. You need 2 diagnostic tests in order to be diagnosed with it. Okay, somebody is saying the only way you get it is from family. No, we've spoken about it. We've spoken about the fact that with your lifestyle choices, you definitely can get diabetes. But we spoke about a predisposing factor why you can have it if it is passed in your family, because many people don't recognize if they should trace back to their grandmothers, their moms, their parents had diabetes. And so what you can do is to prevent yourself from getting it, especially if you recognize that you have a family history where your persons in your family had diabetes. You have to step up to the plate and exercise, eat right, control the amount of sugar that you put in your body, right? You have to step up to the plate to ensure that this doesn't follow in your bloodline. Miguel Distinct Styles Lee says he loves this program. I'm glad you're learning. Don't forget to share hashtag Mckoy's News, hashtag your health is your responsibility, hashtag healthy in 30. Anybody else saying anything? Right, so someone is saying type 1 usually occurs through the family, type 2 is a lifestyle. Yes, that is true, right? So type 2 is more dependent on your lifestyle. Type 1 usually is through your family trait. Getting some thumbs up. All right, good. All right, guys, so we've come to the end of Healthy in 30, right? So we usually use 30 minutes to talk about a common disease affecting the world. Our 30 minutes has ended here today. I want to encourage everybody, continue to log on to Healthy in 30. It's an episode, it's a health program that will be aired every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Right, so tune in, invite your friends, your family, and let's all learn about our health and how we can make better health practices, how we can make better lifestyle changes, how we can make ourselves live a longer and healthier life. As I keep on saying, the aim of this program is not about treatment and management. The aim of it is to stop the disease from manifesting before it even starts. So the aim of this program is for prevention. Right, so the tip of the day is stay hydrated this summer. Walk with your water bottle. It's as simple as that. The tip of the day is stay hydrated this summer. Walk with your water bottle. Good. All right, so I am Miss Cadeja Wright signing out from Healthy in 30. And remember, if you missed today's episode, you can always go back and watch it on Mckoy's News YouTube channel. You can always go back there and catch up on what you missed today. Keep on sharing, keep on liking, and have a blessed day, each and every one. Take care of yourself and take care of your health. Remember, your health is your responsibility.